Between 1979 and 1980, some of the newcomers on the new wave scene made quantum leaps between their first and second albums in terms of musical style, mood, and approach, and instrumentation and arrangements. One such band was Simple Minds, whose first two albums sound like two different bands, and another is The Cure. While The Cure were quite distinctive from the beginning with their very clean staccato sound and kind of moody vibe, they were still somewhat kind of locked into the conventional 3-minute form, something that they totally moved beyond by the time of their second album, 17 Seconds, released in 1980, where they explored more ominous and ethereal type vibes. And from that album, the track In Your House. Kind of a psychedelic vibe. Like it's basically taking like this like 3 note like kind of pluck triad and moving it up like dun, like 3 and then back down. Yeah, A C D C with those same notes playing above the bass line. Yeah, it's a kind of trippy effect where, particularly when it goes between C and D, how the notes above it stay the same. Dun 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 dun. And also the pace of the drum, kind of somnambulistic, just kind of lurching along and. The bass is also really thick and creating kind of almost like an echoey kind of vibe backdrop to it all. Sort of like a chorus type sound coming out of some of the instruments, maybe both the bass and the guitar, that's creating kind of just this subtle swirly effect that fills out the sonic space. And now finally we get some keyboards in. Even though this band was generally kind of light on keyboards around this time, but and I was always kind of a little bit. I always kind of wondered why. I mean, because I thought that could add to their atmospheric approach, but The Cure were one of the few bands that were trying to be atmospheric more with guitar and bass sounds. They were trying to actually get new sounds out of those instruments, whereas most musicians at the time thought that the only frontier really was the synthesizer. That the sounds of the bass and the guitar had been decided long ago. Basically, as the bass goes A, C, D, C. The guitar plays the three notes of like an A, or of like a full A chord, just in succession, over the A bass note, and then over the C bass note, you're hearing the three notes of the C, and then it slides up to D, and creating kind of like a polychordal effect. But the notes above still do the three notes of C. Yeah, it's over the C and D that the guitar doesn't change. That the guitar plays the same three notes, back to back, and that's like kind of like where the kind of like lifted, hypnotic effect of this main riff is coming from. Very careful placement of very thin keyboard sounds. Maybe not the most impressive for its time. Could maybe use a little bit more luminosity, but I guess they just Robert Smith didn't want those keyboards to really dominate the sound too much or take over or really. He just wants them to kind of be sort of maybe more felt than heard, just filling in the background, adding minor detail but not taking center stage, like. I don't know. Whereas if maybe he was to bring one of those more luminous tones that was then in vogue with, say, the likes of Gary Newman or John Fox, it could have perhaps drowned out the sounds that he wanted people to focus on more. Let's catch up with the lyrics here. They're very brief, actually. I play at night in your house. I live another life, pretending to swim in your house. I change the time in your house. The hours I take go so slow. I hear no sound in your house, silence in the empty rooms. I drown at night in your house, pretending to swim. A couple of things come to mind. Either a ghost, an apparition, like haunts this particular house. Maybe it's an abandoned house. Maybe it's a ghost has moved in on a house inhabited by another ghost, a place where someone died. Maybe maybe a person, like a transient, a squatter, has moved into a house where the owner had died, and the owner is an apparition that this new inhabitant this is talking to. Or maybe it's someone who's living in someone else's house unbeknownst to the owner. I just saw like one of those criminally listed, I think is the channel. One of the episodes they did was about this man who lived in this house, someone else's house, for like, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years or something. I think he ultimately killed one of the owners. After months of living in this house unbeknownst to the owner, the owner finally like caught him one day, and this guy who had been like hiding in this crawl space and stealing food when the guy was at work. He stabbed the owner, and then went undetected because no one knew that this guy was living in the house. And then finally, like months later, someone saw him through the window, outside through the window, and he was caught. This was like in 1941. And he went to jail where he died in 1967. Something like that. In fact, the theme of the episode was people who were killed by strangers living in their house unbeknownst to them, unbeknownst to the homeowner. Yeah. Another thing I really like about this album is the thematic unity. Like this song really just kind of flows out of some of the neighboring tracks on the album. You hear like a consistency. As a matter of fact, it's like you can definitely tell that this is from the same album that the forest that a forest is on. It's like because they're all built around simple yet hypnotic structures with strong bass lines that serve as a guide that are somewhat enswirled by atmospheric sounds like. Although another thing to add to my interpretations of the lyrics, there's a big chance that this was simply inspired by a book that Robert Smith read. I think he wasn't he a like avid reader of like fiction horror type novels, or it may have just stemmed from a dream that he had, and it's not really meant to mean anything too specific. It's or it could have been a lyrical idea he had while doing something really strange, like maybe watching horror films on his television set with the sound off or something, and just making up storylines as he watched the action on screen. That last theory I come up with because I know that Phil Oakley of the Human League did that sort of thing. Meaning that it may have been a trend at that time in lyrical writing, just something that these new wave musicians did when, you know, when they were like looking for ideas. As a matter of fact, I read somewhere that Susie Sue always kept a notebook by her bed so she could jot down lyrical ideas if she woke up from a nightmare and it inspired her somehow. We just have that one little bridge in the song that throws in a few other bass notes, and otherwise this has been very consistent, and yet it's moving. And now it just dissolves into that beat, which was really even though the beat is simple, it has that hypnotic effect and that kind of echoey. The yeah, the hits have that kind of sustain to them. The Cure, In Your House, from the 1980 release, 17 Seconds. Their second, and as great as their first album was, this was really kind of I guess, where The Cure really became The Cure, where as they would come to be more where they were really coming into their element in terms of as like an as a band that was equal parts composition and atmosphere. And on the first album, I guess Robert Smith was adamant that the bassist play like an equal role to the guitar. And like on the first album, there were a lot of complex bass lines, like interlocking with the guitar. There was like a lot of complex counterpoint between bass and guitar, like both playing notes oftentimes, very clean, staccato. And on this album, Michael Dempsey has departed. He became the Associates touring bassist, although I don't think he officially joined that duo, Mackenzie and Rankin, but there was some tie-up around this time between the Cure. That's not the only link between those two. Robert Smith appears on the Affectionate Punch. Yeah, go see the video to Deeply Concerned, if the one I did on Deeply Concerned, if you haven't already. And on this album, bass is done by Simon Gallup, but I think that even though the bass work on here is simpler, it's still so front and center and just plays such a crucial role in each piece. It really the most I think the songs for the most part center like revolve around the bass. Like on a forest is a prime example, or the B-sides of that another Journey by Train, a really incredible bass track, which I guess was played live as a medley as a follow-up to Jumping Someone Else's Train, another crafty bass number. Anyway, for more rubies and sapphires from The Cure, see the directory of albums by English C artists linked in the description below. For reds and purples from this album, as well as the album before it and the albums after it up through Disintegration. And other C acts like Curved Air, Culture Club, Cardiacs, Coliseum 1 and 2, City Boy. Yeah, bands that run the gamut. Camel, Caravan, Cabaret Voltaire. As well as like solo artists, like Claire Hamill, Catherine Howe, Cliff Richard, Charlie Dorr. Yeah, I could just you'll see them all when you get there. It's like every English C person that and band that would ever come to mind, and even some you have never even heard of. And like and subscribe and follow me on social media and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about this song that I didn't touch upon, or that you would like to voice, or interpretations of the lyrics, or even maybe a backstory on the lyrics that you know about. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-travel trimaximalist, signing off.